We'll do a quick version of this. So I'll use a few varying shades. I've got some color here. We'll just start off just applying the paint. It can go a bit darker. So where it's very dark, what I want to do is just apply color. So again, as the color breaks up, the other thing I should say, depending on which school of thought you belong to, I'm slightly more kind of from Impressionist onwards. So when I mix my color, I don't want to over mix it on my mixing tray. So what I want to do is I'll literally pick up paint. I might mix it once or twice, but I'm going to go straight in because I want the color to actually physically mix on the canvas, okay? The reason why that's important is I'm going to have these little flares of color come through, and it's just going to make the painting slightly more interesting, okay? Obviously, if you're using watercolor, you can use the same principle, but just add more color to it. I've got my other brush here with this color, so we'll use some of that as well. So some purple and some yellow where it starts to go warmer. Again, I just mix that color up, and maybe we'll use this color over here. I can mix and match a little bit because I want to create some interesting variations. And what I could do is maybe we'll use a bit more purple in there. Okay, so I'm deliberately making sure that the yellow is slightly more subdued because I want to allow the purple to come through. This is part of the thing about when you're painting, you don't really want to look at the image straight away. You want an impression of it. So what you can see happening is what's happening with the colors and the marks that you're utilizing. Okay, so these colors are slightly dampened by the fact that there's a conflict, but that color shoots up forward. So that will allow me then to create some interesting variables as I start painting. So this is going to be light, so maybe we'll introduce some white into this mix, and I'll hopefully get an interesting kind of tint, maybe a bit more yellow on this. And so the horns are quite light. We'll just establish that. Maybe a bit more yellow this time. Obviously, this is really light, but initially what I want to do is I just want to play with color just to allow some of that to come forward. And again, what I've got is color going on. So I've got these two complementaries here kind of in their own space, but they're starting to mix, and that will link the two. And I can do the same with, so these are two brushes I'm using. So we can do the same with maybe some of the red and green in patches. And I can also use this tone to maybe get the two colors mixing together. So where the horns are, we'll just start that process off over here. And maybe we'll add some white with this, so we can get some slightly lighter green. And again, what I want to do is kind of find some interesting abstracts. The drawing will come through later. This is when I was younger, you always had to draw the thing first. That's like the tradition. But I've come to understand it's actually more exciting to do the painting first, and then find the drawing once you've established an idea where you think it's going to go. That way you allow the painting to just breathe that little bit more white. There's other combinations you can use. I'll do another combination. So another combination is blue and orange with some white. So those two are complementaries. So you do get varying shades that create these interesting neutrals. There's a little bit of green in there. So all of a sudden I've got this relatively interesting gray, and maybe we can use some of that in these other areas as well. So it's almost like a swatch of different colors, but I'm allowing some space in between them. And again, what I can do is maybe add a bit more blue this time. It's essentially so I don't get a bright blue, and I can just knock the color down a little bit of green there. If it doesn't work, again, I'll just smother that down. Back to maybe, just trying to remember what the colors were, is a thing. Bit more orange there. Again, just get another clean brush with some yellow. The only thing I'd say about some of these things, it's good to know the formulas, but you don't want your painting to be overly formulaic, which is why sometimes you want to add some colors which are a little bit unpredictable. So let's say I'm going to go in the face now. So I'm going to use this yellow to initially sculpt the animal's portrait a little bit. So the good thing about acrylics is they dry pretty quick, so you can start on the drawing quite quickly. And we can then lighten up this yellow a bit more in some bits over here. Again, got to be a bit careful. And just in here. Bit more with the yellow. One thing I tend to do is I'll leave the really strong darks to the end. That way I can really punctuate where I want them to come through. Just drag that over there. That there. Bit of purple. So maybe some light purple in the yellow now, so I get a lighter tint. Drag that out there. And just roughly where I think the nose is going to go. About there. And his mouth is there. And while I've got this color, that just needs to come in a bit more. Just going to put the ear in on this side. Like so, and then back to probably a clean brush. Back to like dark purple and some green. So what I want to do now is just cut into this a little bit. So you kind of establish some rough ideas of some color. And then you can pull the thing out. I mentioned this before, it's like, I like the idea of sculpting the painting. So it's one of the reasons why I don't want it overly refined at the beginning, because I want to keep some of those sculptural impasto marks. That can come in a bit more over there. So I've got several of these colors still on my brush. Just some gray there, just coming to the edge, just cut that in. Like so. Just gonna do a little bit on the face, and then I'll just add the finishing touches just to give a bit more detail. So some light purple this time around here. The other thing I think is quite important, you don't want to dwell on things, you don't want to get sucked into particular areas. You kind of want to work on the thing as a whole. Okay, just lighten this side of the face a bit, where the ears are, a bit more detail around there. Back to my dark, so I can go down a brush size, tiny little brush here, equivalent of my rigger. And then you can use just a couple of smaller marks just to cut in like so. And we'll just add a few more lines here and there. So it's kind of built up on all these interesting shades because the photo can't give you that nuanced touch that your own perception can do, which is why it's important for you to engage with the painting process a little bit. Bit of dark there. And just a little bit around here. Okay. And just lastly, so the reason why I started with yellow is because it's going to make my white or my lighter tint a little bit more pronounced. So if I then do a couple of little marks, it would just fizz forward because there's not other strong lights coming through. And the yellow around it will help to generate a little bit more heat. Bit of light here, nearly finished. Where am I? There, around there, in here, and just a bit more yellow, I think. So you can really go to town on detail eventually to really pull some of these things forward. A bit more light purple, I think. You kind of want to vary it as much as you can. Just going to do one other thing in the end, maybe get some stronger light green. And we can just, nearly done. These demos take so long. Just want to create a slightly better profile. And in here. So big brush just allows for this coverage. And not going to do the whiskers, I don't think. But yeah, basically you build up with these interesting complementaries so you can allow some of this color to fuse through, and then you can start picking away with the detail and pulling out the detail that way. And hopefully you'll get some color as well as some definition. Okay, pretty straightforward. Thank you.